welcome to the core debate with our presidential candidates for the Students' Union President and CEO role. We're going to keep it real loose and informal tonight with a discussion. I'm going to go over rules really quickly with candidates. We have already decided order and things of that nature, and just a heads up, we will be switching seating about half an hour to 40 minutes in, stretch our legs and allow for Frank to get a view of the other side of the room. So keep an eye out for that. So what we're going to do is opening statements, 2 minutes each. Move into questions and give about 1 to 2 minutes each for answers. If you're mentioning an answer, you get 30 seconds for rebuttal, and then we'll move into discussion until it's no longer constructive. So if we want to talk about a topic for 10 minutes, we can, as long as it is interesting and compelling and we're moving the discussion forward, and so on. It will continue like that until we're out of questions, and we have a lot, so we should be fine. Of course, at the end, we'll allow for closing statements, and those will be 2 minutes each, but we're a long way away from that. So we're going to start it with some broad questions, get it warm, get used to the format, and then we'll go from there. I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Danny, president and publisher at Student Publications, the organization that includes the Cord, which is putting this on tonight. So appreciate your patience and us getting started, and we'll start with opening statements. So you know how these go. You know the drill. We're going to go Olivia, Dave, Frank, as randomly selected.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet. My name's Olivia Matthews. I'm running for Students' Union President. I'm very excited for the debate tonight just to show how much research I've put into my platform. I've been working on this very diligently since September, and I'm excited that I've sat down with both leaders on campus who have been involved and other students who haven't. And I'm proud of my platform I've created in collaboration. And I look forward to being able to explain it a little bit more tonight.
I'm Dave. I'm also very excited to be here and honored to be here, and really looking forward to getting to discuss some of the issues that I'm very passionate about here at Laurier. I've been working very hard to put my platform together and to prepare myself for this, so I'm really looking forward to a good discussion and can't wait to see what questions have come in.
This feels weird, sorry. What's up, Golden Hawks? Frank Dominic Serena, running for Students' Union President. So I just kind of wanted to touch on something that happened to me today, just because I thought it'd be a fun place to share it. So today was the Bell Let's Talk day, and everyone was sharing the stuff, and I decided to share my mental health video, and I didn't really think anything of it. I didn't think anyone was going to say anything, but I got a Facebook message when I got home after my booth times today, and this girl messaged me saying that amongst watching my videos and a bunch of other videos and seeing a bunch of Facebook statuses, she's decided for the first time today she went into the wellness center and she scheduled an appointment. So I don't know, it's just like that kind of made me realize that we really are doing a good thing here, regardless of who wins and regardless of everything that happens between the Let's Talk Day and everything that we're advocating for. We're getting student issues out there and students are paying attention. So sometimes when you're worried that your voice is getting lost in all the election jumble, I think it's good to remember that people are listening and we're making an impact, and there's nothing better than that. I mean, when I decided to run 4 years ago, I didn't think that I'd ever change anyone's lives, but there's a friend of mine who, whenever he comes back, he graduated last year, he always says to me, like, Frank, you changed my life. I pushed him to run for a certain position, and ever since then, he just says that his life has never been the same, and every time he sees me, he always thanks me so much, and it always feels so awkward because I never know what to say, because I'm like, I guess I changed your life, woo, but like it's weird because when someone says that to you, you don't realize how surreal it is. So I just want to say, like, I'm really looking forward to changing more lives, hopefully, over the next year if I get elected.
Thank you, candidates. Thank you for sharing that, Frank. So like I said, we're going to start off pretty broad just to get our feet wet. And so we'll go Frank, Olivia, Dave for the first question, which is, what inspired you to run for Student Union President? So technically, how did you get here tonight? Let us know.
Well, I've said this story 100 times, but my good old buddy, Nick Gibson. So it was Tuesday, September 6, 2011. I received this purple bracelet. And on it says, those who can do, those who can do more, volunteer. And at the end of Nick Gibson's speech, he said, find something you love and make it your own. And so I walked right up to him. At the end of his presidential speech, I left my breakers. They had no idea where I was, and I shook his hand, and I said, my name's Frank, and in 4 years, I want to be standing where you are. And he introduced me to the union. I got on WLT, University Affairs, and then everything kind of just went up from there. Joined Senate, did all the amazing things I've been doing, and I didn't realize exactly what the position was when I first said it. Like I was just a wide-eyed first year, but then I realized what it was, and there was a time there where I thought I only wanted to do UA, and then I realized no, president's what I want, and if I don't run for this, I'm gonna regret it. So it was October. I woke up at 4 a.m, woke up, all my roommates started doing chin-ups, got really excited, and I'm like, I'm running for president. So yeah.
If you'd asked me about a year and a half ago, I would have, if I was going to run for president, for student union president, I would have been like, huh, no. But after being a part of elections now for 2 years and then deciding to volunteer this year for the Students' Union, I just decided there was still some things I wanted to see done with the Students' Union. There were still a lot of people who didn't understand what it did for them. And I've been very fortunate to be a part of a lot of different aspects of the university. And I'd like the Students' Union to be a big part of everyone else's experience. So what led me here really was doing the research first, because I wanted to make sure if I was going to put my life on hold for a few months that it would be worth it. And it definitely has been, but spent the summer thinking about it, meeting with both candidates who had won and lost, just to decide if I could do it. And I decided it was worth the risk. And now I'm here.
I think for me, my intrigue with the role of president of the Students' Union started in my second year when I helped create the mental health education group, and I worked closely with then President Michael Anabalu. And I really got a sense for what he was doing in the role and how it could impact the university. Since then, through my work in student wellness and advocacy, with also my work in residence life, I've really developed a strong passion for the student experience here at Laurier. I've really been able to develop a strong idea of what a wide variety of students are looking for out of their student experience. And I felt as though I could provide something that could help the union ensure that all students are getting the most out of their student experience, because at the end of the day, we only get 4, or if you're me, 5 years here, and then you have the rest of your life to talk about it. So I want people to be saying good things, and I feel I can bring a lot to that role and help make that happen.
Thank you. We don't have a lot to discuss about why your personal journeys, so we will move on from that. But I just wanted to get that one out. So this one might create a bit more discussion, but I think is equally broad. So, what do you think is the biggest issue facing the Students' Union? And for this question, we will go Dave, Olivia, Frank.
I think the biggest issue facing the Students' Union right now is communicating with the students, who are the stakeholders in the union, exactly what the Students' Union is doing at all times, and making sure students understand where their money goes and where they can get the value out of that. I think that's something that's been ongoing, and every year strides are taken and attempts are made to try and improve that and resolve that problem. But I think that is still one of the biggest issues facing the union right now, and something I hope to address.
Kind of going to branch off that. I agree. I definitely agree that it's making sure the students who pay a couple $100s into the union a year know what services it's providing. But I think it's more so than just knowing. It's knowing how to access those services. We're in an interesting situation because, of course, the Students' Union's in a debt, so it can't do any capital projects right now. But what it can do is increase its marketing of how students can use its services, and we can do that through relationship building. So yeah, I would definitely agree with Dave that it has to do with being able to branch out to the students who don't feel connected to the union at this point.
I'm going to bring it more internally. So when we look at the union like a business, we're going through a lot of transition right now. A lot of positions need to be filled. We just hired a new ED, and I think they did a great job with the hiring. And maybe once one of us is elected and we acclimate to the role, it won't really be as much of a problem then, but we're looking at a lot of turnover right now. And because we're a student organization, we have turnover every year of our student executive. I'm hoping that my 4 years of experience would help me get a running start. But the truth of the matter is, I'm looking at when I hear this question, because every student is different, and not every student has the same problems. Because I don't think every student doesn't know what's going on. I don't think every student has problems with hiring. I don't think every student has problems with this and that. But when we look at it as a business, yeah, turnover is always an issue. So making sure that we have the most experienced people in the right positions so we can get a running start and be as effective as possible starting from day one. Because the term doesn't start in September like a lot of people think. You start you start February 6th. So I mean, I want to start running on February 6th. I don't want to start walking and then start running in September.
Okay, thank you. So now that you've kind of identified the issues facing the union from your perspective, we have a good add-on from Colin at home, I presume. So what makes you the best candidate? And you can focus it on your previous answer of what issues facing the union, but you can take it however you want. But so what makes you the best candidate, and you cannot repeat what another candidate says. And for this, we're going to go Olivia, Frank, Dave.
I wouldn't run if I didn't think I was the best candidate, because then I would be doing it for myself and not for students. I think I'm the best candidate because I'm very approachable personality-wise, but I also think that I have worked so hard over the past couple of months to prepare for this role. And if I'm someone that's going to do that without even getting paid and doing that while I'm volunteering, working, going to school, because, it's university here, I think I'm going to work extra hard in this role. I've had experiences throughout campus representing students already and supporting their needs, and I'd like to take that to a macro level.
It's kind of like twofold for me. Business experience, not even my degree, just kind of the places I've worked. I worked here at Laurier, and I got a feel for a lot of that. So I know a lot of the people in the university administration, between Senate and when I did a work term here, BMO and CDW and Investors Group, got a lot of finance experience, so I understand budgets and all that good stuff. But not only that, the last 4 years I've been a volunteer in the union, and I've been learning slowly. And I think that somebody will ask me a question, and I won't even realize that I knew the answer to it until I just start talking, and then I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess after the last 4 years you pick up some stuff. So what makes me the best for the position is that I know the ins and outs of the union like the back of my hand. It's basically part of my blood. It's since day one, and I love this place. So it's not like for me, this isn't going to be a job. It's like I've been doing it for the last 4 years, and the volunteering it's never been a job. It's never been a chore. The volunteering's always been number one. School for me has been kind of second. So I really want to come into work every day and for it to be not work, but just like fun. And that's what it would be for me.
I think for me, it's my experience in different areas of the university and the partnership building basis of the work I've done surrounding mental health, student wellness, and even within residence. What I love about the work I've done is that I've had the opportunities to work with a wide range of students, not one specific group, which has enabled me to develop relationships with a lot of different students covering a lot of different areas on campus, and to really understand what they all want to see out of their university experience and out of their students' union. And I think that, combined with my relatability and my ability to find common ground with a large number of different students across Laurier, I think that'll really help me be the best for the job.
Thank you. Put that down very gently. Appreciate that. So we're gonna start the next one with Frank. And Frank, you mentioned budgets and know-how and that sort of thing. You also mentioned that you love the school. Now, I'm going to presume that all of you love the school because you're running for this job, and it is a lot of work. So we're going to get all of our system right now. We love the school, yes? We're not going to say it again for the debate. We know you guys love the school. I love it too. Moving on to some know-how and budget stuff, because I do think that is important. So we have a number of questions from Chandler, but we're gonna ask. He'd apparently like me to heat things up in here, so I'm gonna keep that in mind moving forward. But we'll do some basic stuff first. So Frank, and we're gonna then go to Dave and then Olivia. What is the union's budget, and how much does each student pay?
Operating budget, I believe, we're somewhere around $8 million as the total corporation. But that's like not the budget that I got to play with. A lot of that's already set in stone for certain areas. There's a different operational budget, and then each student pays. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure, but I believe it is a couple $100 per semester, if not a little bit less. Can't put an exact number on it. I'm sorry.
Again, basically going along with what Frank said, the $8 million budget, but again, that's a lot of that set in stone before you come into the role. And again, I'm not sure of the exact number students pay per semester, but same ballpark as Frank.
I actually asked Phil Champagne this question 2 weeks ago. How much is our exact budget? And his answer back to me was, I can find out for this year, but we're more so a multi-million-dollar corporation. the answer isn't in numbers. It is roughly 8 million, but he just said it's more important to focus on the fact that we are multi-million. With regards to how much students pay, it was marketed last year as $700, all inclusive. That's your health and dental. That's everything else. But I believe it depends. If you're going to pay your students' union faculty fee in there, it changes. But it is roughly $200 per semester. But then it doesn't add up to the 700 that it was marketed as. So it depends what you're adding in there, Chandler.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate the answers. I think we're going to go kind of by theme. So I think we're going to go over to campus safety because something I want to get into right away. And for this one, we'll go Dave, Frank, Olivia. So on the theme of campus safety, obviously a huge issue. And it's present in some respect in each of your platforms, as far as I can remember. And you've certainly spoken about it at the Open Forum and will again in Waterloo on Monday. So I'd just like to know right off the bat, what do you think is the greatest safety issue facing campuses? So one for Waterloo, one for Brantford. And so again, Dave, Frank, Olivia.
I think in my platform, I talk about the need for 24/7 special constable services in Brantford. I think that is obviously a priority that needs to happen to not only keep the university buildings doors open for longer periods of time, but to also increase safety for all students on that campus. At Waterloo, I think for safety, it comes again to making sure that our partnerships with the city are as strong as possible, so that student experience off of campus is as safe as it can possibly be. I think our campus itself is fairly safe, but to make sure that students walking home late at night are able to access services like foot patrol, and if they're not, how well lit are the streets, those sort of things that we can advocate for with the city to make sure that the student experience in the city of Waterloo is as good as it can be.
This one is for Colin, Keegan, and Hughes. Brantford, it is 24-hour special constables. They were expecting me to say that eventually. And then on the Waterloo campus, I would definitely say it has to do with our safety services, so I would label that as ERT, Foot Patrol, and Peer Helpline. And it's double founded on that. It is training, making sure that they're properly trained, which we're usually really good on, and also funding. ERT went through almost their entire budget by the end of November, I believe, this year. And I know that had to do with a lot of extra volunteers that they did not anticipate, but we should never have to go back and give more money to a safety service. They should always have as much money as they need, because safety is the number one priority of students after education, I guess.
For Brantford, I will agree. It is definitely 24-hour special constable service. And I think that is definitely something all of us would be able to advocate on behalf of if we were elected. I think for Waterloo, I'm actually going to take a different stream for safety. I think it's sexual assault and sexual consent. So that's not even just us putting things in place. It's educating students on what that looks like. I think right now there's a blurred definition of what that is, and I think being able to train our volunteers based on what sexual consent looks like and sexual assault on campus awareness is huge for safety.
Is that a discussion question?
Yeah, I want to get into this a little bit because, so you mentioned, Frank, and we'll try to address each point's made, but you mentioned Foot Patrol, ERT, and budgetary issues that are not new. I mean, we hear about this every year, that groups are running out of money, and they know they're going to run out of money, but it is not resolved. So what's going to change this year, and this is open up to all of you, to make sure that these groups so closely related to campus safety are actually given the amount of money off the bat that they need in the budget, and this can be done in the future as well. You can jump in, Frank. It was mostly your point, so go ahead.
I know that they're already doing this for this year, but we're going to start using actuals in the development of the budget. So I know that basically the budget's kind of set even before we take office, because it's always like the half the student executive from last year, half the student executive from the incoming year when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I know that they are going to be using actuals, and that's something we're hoping to carry over. So once we have better use of actuals, we can start looking at how much money each department needs. And if a certain department's always asking for $5,000, but they only use $2,000, we can cut it down to $3,000 or $4,000, and then reallocate that money somewhere else where they definitely need it. Was that the gist of the question?
And I'm glad you clarified that, because in your platform you'd mentioned that you wanted to increase funding for Foot Patrol and ERT, but I was wondering where that money was going to come from, because of course we're in debt. So is that us paying off less debt? Is that us cutting other services? Or is that us collecting more money from students? And I think for upping Foot Patrol budget, I think it's really going to be based off of the resource management project, which right now we're looking at the outputs of the union and making sure that services have enough budget. And then for those who maybe have a surplus there, we can shift around budget areas, which I think will be super beneficial. I also think going into this, just talking about the Foot Patrol, for example, it's the research going in. So for example, Brantford this year didn't put enough money in their budget, unfortunately, to get their volunteers home at the end of the night in taxis. So it's knowing ahead of time that that's something we didn't do this year, and it's absolutely something that's a priority next year.
Dave, would you like to get in here at all?
I think, again, with what Frank was saying, it's about reassessing where the money is going and making sure that it's being spent in the most effective and efficient way possible to provide students with the highest quality programming and safety measures that we can. In my platform, I talk a little bit about peer helpline and looking at improving the training volunteers have there, and making sure that we're finding cost-effective ways to improve the quality so that we're not drastically rearranging budgets in order to make sure that students are utilizing the services we're proud to offer.
Thank you. And we're going to get into your peer-to-peer point later, actually. I think that's an important part of your platform. I still want to touch on this issue, though, because, I mean, if you look, and unfortunately I couldn't get hard numbers for the debate, and I'll get them to you if I do have them, but I've been in touch with walk-home programs, Foot Patrol, in a variety of schools across Ontario, and without a doubt, Laurier is crazy underfunded. Per walk, insanely underfunded. So yes, it is a matter of, okay, we're in debt, where's the money going to come from? But I mean, there is money for other things. I mean, money gets spent every day in the bucket loads for other stuff. So my question basically is this a priority for you to increase Foot Patrol funding? And will it be this time next year? Are we going to be asking the same question? So essentially, what are you going to do differently? I mean, it's great that you're going to have the actuals, but we know it's underfunded right now, today. Of course, go ahead.
So one of the things that I really think we should start doing is, and I know they're already planning on doing this, but PD&T and HR need to definitely be merged and reassessed. Another thing, we fund half of the SLC and we don't use them a lot for our training. We could save a lot of costs by not reallocating funds back into another form of PD&T and instead utilizing the SLC, which we already use, and then the money that would have gone to PD&T we can then put into Foot Patrol. There's money everywhere. It's just whether or not, and with the resource management project, to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan, only because I wasn't the biggest fan of IPRM after going through that process for 2 years. A lot of people are very upset with the outcome. A lot of students, a lot of professors. That Senate meeting was the most aggressive Senate meeting I've ever been at, and that was at 2 fall reading week Senate meetings, one in 2012 and one in 2014, and I have never seen anything as aggressive as that IPRM meeting. So I really think we need to be careful with the resource management project, because if we don't really get full student feedback, we're going to see an outlash if something happens from the committees and services once they realize, hey, I don't agree with what's going on. And I just think that we're not right now reaching out to as many people as we should be for that. But that's a completely another topic, and I don't know if we want to touch that right now.
Go ahead.
But that still begs the question, where's the money coming from? Like, I understand that PD&T is going to get merged with HR. That's already happening. I did sit down with Drew Petico today to talk about bringing in the SLC. And this is totally getting off of topic for the safety, but we'll get back there. But I sat down with him today, and he was all for increasing the partnerships. But he said that the ambassadors cannot take over all of our training efforts from PD&T. They would like to increase the relationship, but they can't take over everything. With regards to going back to budget and finding things, I hope not next year for Foot Patrol, and especially ERT on both of our campuses. But we do have to find a way to get that money, and I don't think students are going on to hear, oh, we're paying more to the union. So that's why I think the resource management project is great. I can't speak on behalf of IPRM because I wasn't a part of that process. I agree with you. We need more voices heard in there, but we also need to figure out where the money's coming from. And I think that's a really good way to critically assess what our outputs are so that we can increase funding for these services that need it. We're the second largest volunteer safe walk program in Canada. So yes, absolutely a priority to get the budget there.
I agree with Liv in that the resource project, the management is going to help us assess where we can reallocate funds. Again, I think we all mentioned earlier that students need to know more about what's being offered and how they can access those resources. So again, I don't think students are going to be willing or want to pay more to programming that they're not accessing or utilizing right now. So I think our first priority needs to be increasing the use that these services get before we can justify spending more funds on them.
I've never once said that I wanted to increase student dues or student fees, in case you guys were wondering that. It's nowhere on my platform, never mentioned it, but just wanted to say that just in case.
Thank you for that. Okay, I think we've kind of exhausted the foot patrol conversation, but I did want to get that out there because it is a matter of is our priority, and then second part being where is the money coming from. But these questions have been asked at every debate. Like me watching them back, it's frustrating, right? So I don't want someone to watch this next year and be like, damn, they talked about that last year too. Because the guy's going to want some new material for sure. Staying on the campus safety bit though, Olivia, you mentioned sexual assault and kind of what that looks like. And I think part of that too is having mechanisms in place to deal with situations on university campuses. So I'm just curious if there's any, and this is open, but just touching on your point, if there's any kind of policy initiatives or big picture things you'd like to see happen that you kind of advocate on behalf or the Students' Union can be involved in.
Well, I think at the core of it, it's being supportive when those issues do arise. We as a union have to speak on behalf of our students, and when students have, for instance, I wrote about this in my platform, the Gender Violence Task Force is a really great newly incepted thing, and it happened not out of the union, but it happened because students wrote an open letter to the university administration because they were upset about how the campus was dealing with sexual assault and gender violence on campus. And I think the union should be at the forefront of those discussions when things happen. Some more tangible things that I see happening, working in partnership with the Gender Violence Task Force, just so students know more what it does. And then also I have a point about Baucus. They do an amazing job already of being educational about safe sex, and even about consensual sex as well. But I believe them working in partnership with the Diversity and Equity Office would carry on that conversation more, and they could use each other's resources as well. Because we were just talking about underfunded services. So if Baucus worked in conjunction with the DEO, there would be more people in the discussion and there'd be more resource there.
Dave, go ahead.
I am personally no expert on this topic. However, it is something that through my work with mental health has come up, and I've partnered with people who are, and I've seen the impact that sexual assault and gender violence can have. I think what we need to work with as the Students' Union and the Gender Violence Task Force is to develop a long-term strategic plan as to how we want to see the campus dealing with these issues moving forward and how we want to see Laurier addressing it in the future. But we also need to look for interim solutions like what Liv said with Baucus. I think that's a great point. We've talked about safe sex for a long time. The next step is to talk about consensual sex. And I think we need to see us going into residences and different programming and finding ways to use the resources we have to make sure that we are addressing this issue with the seriousness that it deserves.
I just wanted to clarify this because it was a point that got brought up with the Baucus coordinator, Jess Bloom. It's not that they haven't been focusing on consensual sex. It's just that we're going to continue the conversation there. I just didn't want to throw them under the bus there because they have been doing that. It's just, I think it would work better in partnership with the Diversity and Equity Office. But that's just clarification.
Quick little story. My first interaction with the Diversity and Equity Office and the Women's Center would have been having a chat with some people after some training during orientation week, volunteer training this summer. We were doing a big chat on gendered violence and violence against women. And at no point in time during the original presentation did they bring up violence against men, sexual violence against men. And I kind of stood up and I said, like, it was a lot of, not many people in that room had heard, but I think only like 2 people I had ever told at that point. And I said, like this can happen to guys too. It's happened to me before. We need to make sure that it's gendered violence, not just violence against women. And that point was brought up with the people at the Diversity and Equity Office. And then once the development of the gendered violence steering committee was created, I sent them an email and said I would love to join. And I was brought on board, and now I'm on that. We got our first meeting on Friday. It's going to be great. And I just want to make sure that, like, we can't just be saying we're going to be doing stuff. We need to be invested in it. And I think after going through an experience like that, you become personally invested in it, and I can't wait to get started on working with them.
I'm glad to hear it. And I want to get back to the money portion of this, because these initiatives are going to cost money, and Foot Patrol always gets, for some reason, where's the money going to come from? But 24-hour CS is going to cost money too in Brantford, and I know funding has recently been made available, but you can't run a university on hopeful government funding. There's funding available for a lot of things. What we get is a different story. So throughout, when you're pitching these ideas, I may just point that out, that these things are going to cost money. It's not just Foot Patrol, which actually has such a minuscule budget in comparison, that is going to be the big issue. I think we'll move on from campus safety for now, but we will come back to mental health at some point, because that is an important topic as well. Just going through our submitted questions here. I think this is a good one, and it relates to a lot of the points we've already brought up in terms of getting things done and being more proactive. And this question will go Olivia, Dave, Frank. What is your ideal working relationship with the university administration? Why, and how do you get there? And this question is from Jordan Epstein.
When I first decided to run for this and started meeting with full-time staff in the office, they told me I had to decide between being a president who would be happy and communicative and just, expressing everything, that everything was going well, or be a president that was going to push things. And I think I'd like to see myself being a little bit of both with university administration, not just sticking to the status quo because it's the way it is. As soon as someone tells me, oh, well, it's just the way it is, that's when you know you have to keep pushing. And at the same time, having a very professional and working relationship there, because in all fairness, you really don't want to piss off university administration. I'm all about relationship building in my platform specifically. So you definitely want to build and strengthen that relationship, but it's more of a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours relationship, where you are going to push a few things, but you're also going to know when you need to build on the relationship.
I can't disagree with Liv on that. She made some great points as to the balance between having a good working relationship and also being willing to push certain topics. I think at the end of the day, students, for the most part, don't get to sit in on those meetings. And it's up to they trust the president and whoever they elect for that role to stand up for them. And so while a good working relationship is important, I think it's very important that the students know whoever they elect will stand up and push for the things that the students prioritize, and make sure that they advocate for the university administration to prioritize those issues as well. And that's what I'd like to think I can bring to the table.
So hopefully I answer this properly, because I know if for some reason none of us got it in the right direction, Epstein's going to be really mad and start sending in another question. So hopefully this is good for you, Epstein. But I really do believe that I can be the president who goes in there and is a little aggressive and says we need to get this stuff done, mainly because I have a lot of personal relationships with the university administration already. I already know them. I'm on first name basis with Max Blau and all those people. So it's not going to be like I walk into the meeting and I'm just meeting them for the first time and I'm going in for a big ask. It's like I'm going in there and I'm talking with them and I'm going asking for a favor from a friend. And it's much easier to get things accomplished that way, and you can still kind of put your foot down and still be on a respectable level because they already know you previously from professional interactions. That being said, there's something else I was going to say, but it's starting to slip me. Yeah, just slipped my mind, so that's it, yeah.
Thank you. Hope that satisfied you, Epstein. So we've talked a little bit about what you each bring to the table, how you'd address certain issues differently. So the next question relates to that. I'm trying to think of how to word this one. Certain things aren't being done that you want to see done, which means they are not being done right now. So what are your thoughts on the performance of this year's president and administration, and what would you do differently? And for this one, we will start with Frank, and then move on to Olivia, and then Dave. So
we kind of touched on this a little bit at Brantford Open Forum. One of the main issues, and obviously this was for personal reasons, and it changed once again when the school year started. But the lack of social media presence from the president for the first few months, that was a bit of an issue. But the second September started, which is really when students are mostly around, he was back on it, and that's fantastic. And one of the things I think they did really well, and it's going to be a continuing thing because as I said, we're in the middle of a lot of turnover right now with staff. They've done some amazing hiring. I think they've done a great job so far, and I think that they're going to continue to do a great job with hiring. So, I mean, yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, again, like Frank said, we touched on this at Open Forum yesterday. I think mine's similar. One thing I would have liked to see improve from the management team and the president would be just presence in the community. A lot of students they don't know who their VPs are, or they haven't seen the president. And that might be because they're doing a lot of work upstairs here, but if students don't know that and they don't see you, then it doesn't matter. And then I think something that has been done really well is I'm really happy to see the lottery system go. I'm really happy that volunteers were finally heard, and there was a feedback process there that's changed it over to the carousel system. I think that's a huge accomplishment of the management team this year.
I think in terms of accomplishments, I'm also very happy to see the lottery system go. I think it's really nice to see that students' voices were heard and it was responded to appropriately. In terms of space for improvement, I think it again comes down to, and I know every year people try, and maybe it's just a matter of different approaches, but making sure students know what's going on. Whether that's getting out of the FNCC, whether that's attending varsity games and club events and different things like that so that you have a presence, whether it's on social media. I think there are a number of different outlets that need to continue to be explored and developed so that students can identify their students' union and the value within it.
Thank you. Can we have a time discussion on that? I'm just kind of like open.
Absolutely, go ahead.
This is more like I guess questioning you guys, and I try and answer it myself too, but it's more so like, and because I don't know the answer. Every year we come in and we say more exposure, more transparency, but like, what are we gonna do? Because I'm stumped. I don't know what to say because true transparency is hard to achieve. So I'm just curious, like, because I don't have anything for that. I'm not trying to say like I know everything, but I think that might be something to address.
I do think it changes every year, though. I think Annie's year, people knew who she was and they saw her out at events. In comparison, when people have asked me, who are you going to be like? Sam, Annie, Mike Onabalu? Like, people see those people in certain lights. Like, management team's getting some stuff done. We saw Annie a lot. So I do think it does go back to just attending events, improving the online presence, got the State of the Unions in there, just making everything a little bit more accessible to students, whether it's you in your body or you, what you're doing within the union in an online presence.
I think the thing to discuss here is that none of us have experience in the role of president. And it's easy for me to sit here and say, oh yes, I'm going to attend all these things, but I'm sure at the end of a long, long week, it's hard to do that. However, I do agree with Olivia in that the importance of that presence. When students can recognize the leaders of the union, I think that's really valuable. And I think it's about finding that balance between productive work and maintaining a presence outside of the office.
Thing is like, is that stuff we've seen year over year? Like we saw it with Mike, we saw it with Annie, we saw it with Nick. I was just saying, like, is there anything else you guys want to do otherwise? Because when it comes to online presence, especially with Annie's, like she did a pretty good job. But as a content creator myself, I know that even when you put out some really good content, you might only reach 100 people. But like I have experience with certain things that have gotten like over 3,000 views from just Laurier students alone because like I kind of feel like I know how to hit the nerve on and like get people to get like the gooey feelies and like want to share it with all their friends who go to Laurier. So I was just like kind of curious, like what experience do you guys have? Like, 'cause like I'm just saying for myself, like with the online presence, like I feel like I'm pretty good with that. Do you guys have any ideas on how we can expose that? Because for me, it would be YouTube videos. Like that would be my way to expose and share with everyone. I was just kind of curious what you guys' thoughts were.
Well, I was just going to say that we've seen a lot of turnover in our marketing department. So that's going to have to be a conversation we have with the new team that's hired. That is their responsibility when you're dealing, and you've touched on this a bunch of times, when you're dealing with the 95% of the day-to-day operations, you can't always be the marketer of what's going out, but I'm just saying I like to see that in the vision. So once that new team's hired, they're definitely going to be responsible for getting that information out. But I think also we have to differentiate between what the management team has to do and what the president has to do. Our role as the president, would be to be a representative voice. The VPs are a lot more operational. So I think it is your job, not solely, but a primary focus of your job should be visible.
I'd personally would like to get out at the FNCC and get out at the office. I think asking students to come find us before they've had a chance to meet us or get to know us is asking a lot of some students. And if we're truly passionate about increasing student engagement and helping students know what's going on, then we need to be out there having those conversations. I understand with time commitment, I'm probably digging myself a grave here once I'm into the role, should I be fortunate enough. However, I think that's something that needs to be prioritized to a certain extent, is getting out and into other buildings and having these conversations with students.
I agree. Thank you. Yes, and feel free to challenge each other on each thing. That's totally fine by me. We're going to get all nice for a second. So what qualities does your opponent have, and you can pick one, that will make them suited for the job next year? And don't repeat qualities. Generally, just don't repeat. Rule the debate. Yes. Yes, both of the candidates. So for this one, we will start with Dave, and then Olivia, and then Frank. So 2 qualities that are going to make your opponent successful if elected.
I think for Frank, it's his experience. Like you said, he's able to come in. While none of us have experience in the role of president, as I mentioned, he does have some experience with the internal operations of the Students' Union, and I'm sure that would be beneficial for him. For Olivia, I think it comes down to relationship building and the relationship she's already personally been able to establish at both Laurier campuses at this point in her university career, and I can't see why that wouldn't benefit a president.
Thank you. That's very kind. I would say for Dave, it would be the ability to speak with people. So, like you just touched on in your last point, you going out and having conversations with people, I think that's something you're used to doing. So I think that would be beneficial in the role. And I think for Frank, you are very determined. I mean, come on. You started off by saying you wanted to do this in first year. So if you're gonna do something, you're gonna get it done, and that's a quality you'd want, right? So definitely that.
One thing that I got to know about Liv, especially when I was a breaker for her floor, is that she is organized in a way that I don't think I'd ever be. Especially your personal schedule. Like, I've seen like your little book, and like it just blows my mind that I could never do anything like that. So that quality, like that pure organizational power, because I know how busy your life is going to be if any of us were get elected. Like, so that I think will let you stay cool and calm, because when you're not stressed about your day schedule and you're not stressed about having to go here and there, when you're truly organized, you can focus on things. And with Dave, it's something that I think Dave just slightly has more than me, and not necessarily for Laurier or for anything else, but it's something that I pride myself on. It's pure passion. Like, Dave has pure passion, and it's hard to explain what that means, but when you see him get into something and when you see him talk about something that was really important to him, especially that O-week chat he has about mental health, you see it in his eyes. That is true passion, and I can't say it more than that, but it's a powerful thing. It's a really powerful thing.
That was intense. It was good. Yes, you are. You could write each other. Yeah, you should write each other reference letters after this. Is good. We'll get back to some more issues. I'll try to throw easy, fun ones in like that on occasion. So, question from Michael Cates, I believe. Yes. This is a good one. Hi, Michael. This is a good one. What steps does the union need to take to maintain the same level of services as admission targets decline year over year? So keep that question in mind, and also the union. But I'd also like to know your thoughts on decline generally and the impact that's going to have. So please touch on the question, and then feel free to touch on declining student body more generally. And for this one, we will go Olivia, Frank, Dave.
Well, I actually work in the admissions department. I'm a campus ambassador, so I'm definitely well aware that our admission rates are not going down. However, we got more people applying, 1.8% higher, doing good. But for the union specifically, Well, obviously that means, again, less funding going in, because the less students we have, the less they're paying student fees in. So trying to maintain the same level of service is going to be difficult. I also do believe we're going to get less people applying for positions as well, given if we have a smaller student population. So how to combat that as a students union? Difficult at this point. But what we can do is continue our plan to get rid of the debt first. And then also, and I'm going to keep mentioning the resource management project, but like we need to figure out what's our priority as a union, because we can't keep expanding if our population's going down. So priorities first. And then for the university in general, it's the same process for classwork. We already saw that in the IPRM process, that we're going to have to cut some classes, which is unfortunate because those classes should be given the chance to grow and those programs should, but with less students, very challenging.
One thing I just want to kind of disagree with is that I never think that we're going to have a true lack of volunteers. Laurier is Laurier because everyone volunteers. I remember looking at some stats back a few years ago, and it wasn't percentages. This is just pure numbers. There are more students who volunteer at Laurier than who volunteer at York, and York has 5 times the population of our school. We are a volunteer campus, and I think we're always going to remain that way. But when it comes to admissions, what the union can do, it goes right back to safety. Colin, that's for you. No, but seriously, it goes right back to safety, because when students don't feel safe and they're trying to make a decision, and students are looking at universities, if you don't feel safe on our campuses, you're not going to come. Safety is the number one thing in that aspect. And yeah, we're going to get less student union dues coming in, but I do believe that our budget's in a good place where that, with the current fluctuation, the minor fluctuation that we're looking at, I think that we're still going to be fine, and we're always going to be on top of it, because if it continues to be a downwards trend, we're always going to be looking at the next year preparing for it. We're never going to be caught unaware or in a bad position.
Do you want to pass it over to?
Sorry, is it my turn next?
Olivia had a...
Yeah, she's had a point, so I'm just.
Oh, okay, you can rebut first.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's funny that you mentioned the volunteer thing, because both of us work and volunteer for university affairs, and that's a department that doesn't get enough volunteers, and increasingly goes down, like decreasing. But it's a problem. We still can't fill those positions. We reopen hiring every semester. So agreed, maybe for icebreaker positions, volunteer-wise, we're going to see students still applying, but almost every other committee and service is struggling.
Dave, go ahead. Frank, you can speak in after.
I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier in assessing the quality of everything we're doing and where the funding needs to be allocated. And I think it needs to not only look at necessarily the rates of use, but also looking at what is our vision, what are the ends of the union, and how does each programming component fall into that, and how can we prioritize what it is we want to see being developed. And as the population, should it continue to decrease, that's something we're going to have to look at, is taking a more qualitative approach and making sure we're balancing funds, usage, and the priorities of the union.
Here as a university affairs coordinator, I lost maybe half my volunteer base within the first week of school because half of them failed STAR. I just like that, gone. No volunteers because of STAR. And it's for all general positions. The majority, like almost, other than the O-Week volunteers, because there's always going to be an over amount of people applying for those. In my opinion, if you want to be a volunteer on a general level position, there's no reason why a STAR application should be the barrier to entry, especially for something like foot patrol and ERT. If you want to walk people home until 3 in the morning, why should an application stop you? Because if you have difficulty filling out a STAR application, you can ask for help. You can still fail. And we see failure all the time with STAR. When I was a coordinator, one of my co-coordinators had actually failed STAR, and we just kind of ignored the hiring system so we could hire the best people. We should not have to skew the hiring system to hire the best people. So I really do think that when we're talking about less volunteers applying, tons of footers have told me that if I got rid of STAR, they would reapply when they're not going to next year. Or people who aren't on foot this year who were in the past, if I got rid of STAR, they will reapply. And I really do think that that's a big key thing for getting general level volunteers out, because execs, coordinators, we're always going to be good for that, because people always want those positions. But those general volunteers, the people who really run our organization, if STAR is a barrier to entry, we should remove it.
In a few minutes. And Dave, I'm just going to make a quick point, and if your point's still relevant, by all means. I just wanted to touch on the volunteer interest. because students union and any other campus club is a bit of an echo chamber, right? So you have interest, but you largely talk amongst yourselves. And there's a ton of students here who do not give a shit about what goes on here. And that's just how it's going to be. So my question is, if these numbers are dropping and volunteers are not turning out for all positions, how are you going to engage people that are not already engaged? Because yes, Laurier has a reputation as a volunteer school, and that's fair. But at the end of the day, there's a ton of students who are not connected to what goes on this campus. And it's not only the union, but predominantly the union is going to have a hard time marketing to those people. So what are you going to bring to the role, and how are you going to approach that sort of apathy when it comes to students knowing what you do and how you serve them? And Dave, you can start off and take it however you want.
My previous point was no longer relevant to this new one, so I'll focus on this. That's just fine. I think, should we start to see this happen, and it already is, we need to change our approach. We need to stop expecting people to come to us, and we need to stop selling it as this high almighty opportunity and expecting people to seize it. We need to go out and educate people as to why that opportunity is so valuable, and why the three of us who are all sitting here, we all value it. We all value the volunteer experience, and we need to go out there and share that with the average Laurier student and make sure everyone understands the benefit that they can receive as a volunteer. We need to make sure that we're marketing it outside of the FNCC, as I keep saying, but also just going into different areas and making sure that we're reaching everyone and spreading that net and educating people onto the value of the program we're offering and the value of volunteering for it.
Thank you, Dave. With that, we'll jump into hirings. I know that's a big point for you, Frank, and for the rest of you too. So what are our thoughts on STAR, just off the bat, so we get that out of the way? So Frank, we know. It sucks. Olivia, what's your stance on that?
I don't see. I'm a student who applied in third year for STAR and was not inside the union bubble per se. I got through my application. Okay, it does take a little bit more work, absolutely. But it is a real. You mentioned in your platform, it's modeled. You want ones that are modeled after real world hiring practices. STAR is a real world hiring practice based on behavioral and situational questions. So I'm just interested to hear what you would replace it with. I want a plan.
Yeah, we're just going to let Dave chime in on what his stance is, and then we can get started.
Me personally, in my first year, I applied to be an icebreaker for my second year. Didn't get it. I like to blame lottery. Could have been STAR. Who knows? Still up in the air. But I think, as Olivia said, there is value to it. And we need to, if we're going to replace it, we need to make sure we're educated in exactly what we're replacing it with and why. Relating to Frank's points on foot patrol, I agree people who want to be willing to do that should have the opportunity to. However, if we're talking about safety, there does need to be some kind of filtration system into that programming. So I'm curious, if you want to remove STAR completely from foot patrol, what do you plan on implementing that's going to ensure the quality of the volunteering in that safety service?
All right, so there's not going to be no application. It's just going to be more of a pass-fail system, including questions such as, is your GPA above 5, and have you received a DNR before? When it comes to safety, all those safety services have to do background checks, ERT, foot patrol, internal, for peer. So I think we're covered there. When you say it is used in real-world situations, so just because a couple companies use it doesn't mean that every company uses it. And we're not going to not use behavioral-based questions. We're just going to not use STAR, because the formula of STAR is the real issue here. Now, we say STAR is used by real-world companies, but you know who doesn't hire using STAR? Our own university. You know who doesn't hire using STAR? The majority of the companies you apply to when you go through the co-op system. You know what every company in the world uses when you apply to a job? A cover letter and a resume. You know what I think we should be teaching our volunteers to do so that when they graduate, they're prepared? Cover letters and resumes.
Sure, cover letters and resumes, very important as well. How are you going to get rid of nepotism in those application procedures? The Students' Union is a very tight-knit community. If you're writing a cover letter and a resume, we know who that is right away. I'm not saying you don't necessarily know that for STAR, but I need a better alternative than just a cover letter and a resume, because that's just words on a paper. I think you should have to put in a little bit of effort for the volunteer position. And to go further, I think in your platform you mentioned that you want to allow past volunteers to just be automatically rehired. And I think that just creates such a a bias system already there. What if all the executives stay?
It's
as
not for executives, only
executives?
for general levels.
We're going to do a quick
Sorry.
sound check, just 1 second.
Has it been sound this entire time?
You just cut out when you were talking. I want to restart my board. Is the mic still? Is the camera still on? Is I just? Okay. Can everyone unplug their mic and replug it? Okay, so I need everyone, starting with Danny once he gets his mic back in, count to 10 and then go to the next, go to Olivia, count to 10, then Frank, and then Dave. Okay?
Me first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We're good? All right. Apparently we are good. So if you did not notice, Frank and Dave switched, and Olivia moved down. So switching up a bit just for fairness sake. We were discussing hiring, so quick recap. Frank would like to replace it with another system. Olivia and Dave see value in it, but do agree that modifications could be made. Do any three of you have systems that you, other than cover letter resume, that you actually want to implement? Or would you keep STAR as is, no changes? So Dave, I'm going to go to you, and then we'll work our way around.
I don't specifically at this point in time have another system because I personally am no expert on this topic. I think there is value to always reassessing the work we're doing, and I think having these conversations and using our partnerships to help evaluate the system we're using and see where modifications can be made is definitely beneficial to the union. However, at this point in time, I don't have some drastically new system I plan on coming in with.
So I've been thinking about this for 4 years. And this isn't a joke. I've been tweaking this for like 4 years. I have a 9-minute video I'll be releasing later on in the week, detailing in full detail how executives, coordinators, and VPs would be hired using the STAR system, how it would be different for Orientation Week volunteers, and the hiring system for general volunteers as well. That 9-minute video will be tagged in a 2-minute video that I'll be uploading explaining why I don't think STAR is the best. But yes, I do have a full system in place. It's just way too long to put into a platform.
I don't actually know the answer to this question, but have you ever volunteered for hiring and recruitment?
No.
Okay. I like the STAR system only because, again, touching on the issue of nepotism, I think maybe what we could improve there is hearing volunteers' voice, which, again, we've done with getting rid of the lottery system. But I think also hearing volunteers' voice if HR does need to do a better job of training volunteers on how to use STAR. I think it is accessible at this point. Maybe we need to market that service better, that you can get trained on how to do it. But I do think something needs to be in place. I'm interested to see your 9-minute video to see what you would like to put in place of STAR. But yeah, no, I think.
There'll be a lot of details, 9 minutes.
Nah, I know. He's a vlogger.
A quick one, and we're moving on.
Basically, nepotism, STAR? Yeah, there's still nepotism in STAR. There's tons. Why don't we look at the fact that year over year, we have people who apply to be HR so that they can learn how to do STAR the best so that they can become breakers or head ICEs or coordinators. And it does happen. We see it. We hear people talking about it in the 2-4. It happens in the Students' Union clique, but it happens elsewhere too. People join HR to learn the system. We should not have to have people become volunteers to become better volunteers. It just doesn't make sense. It's backwards logic to have to first be an HR volunteer to then learn the rubric so that you can get the best mark possible. It's really just, in my opinion, kind of upsetting. But that's a whole nother thing.
Are these really awesome points? No, no. Appreciate your honesty. Okay, so I'm gonna ask one more question, and then I'm gonna ask targeted questions to each candidate, and then we'll see how we're doing for time. So, first one is, and we'll start Olivia, Frank, Dave for this question. So, this is from Chandler, hence the combative tone. Which of your two opponents has the worst platform, and specifically why? Floor is yours. Yes. Yes, Olivia.
I appreciate working with Dave. However, I just don't think there's enough research in your platform. I don't think you've met with enough people. And I respect your personality and everything you could bring forth in the position that way. But I think in order to hit the ground running for this position, where you could achieve all the change, and even just know the day-to-day operations, I just think there needs to be a little bit more research there.
All right, so I got a list here. It's Olivia's, and there's a few points. So with the development of the online reimbursement system, it's too expensive and completely overgoes what our current reimbursement system is like. The faculty associations having elected presidents, we should not be telling faculty associations what to do with their own faculty association. That would be like breaking into somebody's room in the middle of the night and saying, did you brush your teeth before going to bed? We know we should brush our teeth, but we should not be forcing people to do so. It's their choice to do what they want. With the Residence Life, you mentioned First Year Project does not run events connected with services. When First Year Project was rebranded from First Year Experience Team, the First Year Campus Experience Team, the whole point of the First Year Project rebranding was because they were supposed to be integrated with Student Union Services, and they have been doing that. The mental health education group, people are not ready to be training volunteers. They aren't prepared for that, and they would have to do separate training on their own to do so, and that is not currently in their budget. The development of the mobile app, it is far too expensive to do so. The union's already lost a bunch of money, and so has the university. It's been in development for, 6 years now? All right.
Comprehensive list. We'll move on to Dave, and then Olivia, you can speak to any and all if you so choose.
Again, having worked with Olivia in past contexts, I have respect for her as a person and as a peer, and I know she'd bring a lot of great things to the role. Looking at the platform specifically, I'm not going to go into what Frank just did, but there are some parts where I struggle to see the tangible value that would come out of it. I get the relationship building. I just sometimes wonder if we're building relationships just for the sake of saying that we've built relationships instead of with a specific goal in mind. That's my only thing with the platform.
Okay. Olivia?
Hello. Knew that was going to happen. So, Frank, I might need the list, but I think I'm trying to think of Residence Life, huge one, obviously, because I've been involved with it for 3 years. It's not happening. I don't know where you're getting that information from, because for Dons and for first year students that we're talking to, they don't know how to use the services. And I understand that you were on the liaison team before, but we need to get better at doing that. Because if we catch students in first year, they're going to know how to use them for the rest of their university career. For the faculty associations, I understand that it might be not incredibly financially feasible. There are some processes we could put in place to create more of an online system for the faculty associations, because that is something they are so frustrated about. We as a students' union need to be advocating on their behalf. I think there are tons of tangible steps in my platform. I think I broke them up into foundations to tell people what I wanted to do that aren't just focused on relationship building, but I think all the steps underneath are very realistic and tangible. And I think what's cool about my platform is that it all could be achieved within the year, but it's still visionary in the sense that it would put us on track for the next couple.
Yeah, 30 seconds and 30 seconds.
Didn't say that First Year Project does stuff with Res Life and all that good stuff. I said that's their mandate. I just simply said that it's their mandate, and maybe they're not doing the greatest job of it, but that's what they're supposed to be doing. And also, the system costs money to change the reimbursement system, but visas don't cost us money to implement, and I've been told by multiple clubs and faculty associations that they would like visas.
I'm going to use my 30 seconds to defend my own instead of continuing that discussion. I think my platform has a little bit more research than I'm getting credit for, but the main thing is I don't have that experience. I haven't had all of those conversations I wish I had. What I do have is a self-awareness and honesty and humbleness that'll help me in that transition period to take advantage of the time I'd be provided with to make sure that come the day I start in the role, I am able to hit the ground running or as damn close to it as I possibly can.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for that. So we're going to move into direct to questions for candidates. I think we'll start with Dave and then go to Olivia and then Frank. So, Dave, in terms of public recognition, from my very subjective view of the world, you are the least well known out of the three candidates. And that's the reality I face as Canada as well. So I don't mean that as a disparaging comment. It's just the reality of the situation. So what is your plan moving forward leading up to voting to change that?
I think one thing I've started to do more of in the last year or so is public speaking. Obviously, I spoke at O Week this year to the entire first-year class, and things like that obviously help me build my recognition. Moving forward, social media is something I would like to increase my use of. Right now, people who know me personally know I'm not the greatest, but I don't have a reason to be the greatest because I don't think Dave Patterson, the fourth-year student, is all that interesting, and I don't think people need to know what I'm doing every minute of the day. However, Dave Patterson, the Students' Union president, has more to say.
Sorry.
He put it better than I did. So I think moving forward, that's something where I would definitely like to increase my presence on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, these sort of platforms, because I think obviously in the role there's a hell of a lot more to talk about than I have right now, and it is important to reach out to those students.
And I've got one more for you, so we're going to bring you around one more time. So you mentioned peer-to-peer as a long-term goal, and I want to get to this now in case we run out of time. So you mentioned peer-to-peer as a long-term goal, and I think we can all get behind that idea as a long-term plan. I think that's great. Your platform does lack clear policy initiatives. So I'm just going to ask, was this intentional so that you weren't bound by any certain initiatives or that you didn't feel comfortable with? And if whatever your answer, could you please provide a couple of policies that you would like to get behind?
Sure. I think, yes, it is intentional in the sense that every university whose system I've looked at is different. And therefore, Laurier's will be different from any others because we are unique in our own ways and need to target our programming specifically to the needs of our students, not those at Queen's or Western or Waterloo or wherever else we're looking at the system. In terms of things I would like to see in place, the big questions that tend to come up are around sensitivity and things like that with the nature of the discussion. And I think that these are all things that every system has modeled and things that I would be looking into to find ways to make sure that the nature of the sensitive conversations that are happening is well respected and that we don't leave anything out. That's why it's a long-term goal. If it was easy, I'd say I could do it this term, but it's not. Because we have to look at what other schools are doing and we have to look at our own school and say, what can we do here and how can it make the most sense for Laurier? And that's something I don't necessarily know the answer right now. I'm just saying I want to prioritize the forward progress on this topic.
Thank you. Olivia? First question, you have a minute to answer because it's pretty simple. The next one, you can take your time. But so your online reimbursement system will allow for online tracking of reimbursements, which is fantastic. However, if students can see the reimbursement being processed on time, that doesn't indicate that it'll actually happen any faster. It might just piss them off because they can see it happening slowly. So does that mean you have a plan to get it happening faster? Is that part of that implementation?
Yes, so I said underneath that point that it is a tracking system because we have a VP, clubs and associations, and that is their job. If we need to make that process faster because that's a number one complaint for us, absolutely. So right now, Tom does a really good job. If he gets it in on Tuesday, I believe they're out by Thursday to get the checks. I think the faster process in place is just letting students know that they can hand it in online and then them being able to see if there's a problem. Because that's what's been brought up a lot with them is that when there's an issue, they're not getting an email saying there's been an issue with your application and then they wait another month for it.
And I've got one more for you. So this one, you can take a bit of time, maybe 2 minutes. So you've lived on campus, if I'm not mistaken, for your entire university career?
Correct.
Correct, okay. So relatability is undeniably a strong suit in terms of you being approachable and good Laurier student, et cetera, very involved. It does put you in the extreme minority of students who have never lived off campus. So how do you hope to relate to and advocate for students who have lived off campus or live off campus for their entire university career and have community concerns or concerns related to the community that you would have never experienced?
Well, I think I've already mitigated that problem by meeting with so many students. I've already said quite clearly at the beginning of the vision of my platform that it is not a sole reflection of my own university experience. It's a reflection of all the students I've met with, both students who are involved and are involved, students who commute in from Mississauga, like I've got one on my team, so I definitely hear those complaints there. So if we're gonna go commuter, definitely. And then if we're gonna touch on that, none of us have ever lived at Brantford. So I think it is just doing your research and meeting with students as much as possible. Because if we're going to fault me for living on campus for 4 years, you got to fault all of us for never having lived in Brantford.
Fair enough. All right, Frank. So you can, again, take your time. I have 2 questions for you. So you mentioned your videos a couple times and reaching out on YouTube and that sort of thing, which is a great initiative if you're looking to get information out there. So you make videos and post them on YouTube. Some of these videos have created controversy, especially your one about gender roles in women. That video and possibly others I could not find anymore. What do you say to students with concerns about your ability to represent the student body, given your perspective on gender roles, which cause controversy and other issues?
I will answer that in 1 second. I just want to quickly say one thing. I would say that Dave is well known. I just want to defend him here because if you talk to any first year student and say the guy who talked about mental health during O Week, they know who Dave is. So I do think he's well known. I just wanted to quickly. No, I know. I just wanted to quickly say that like he is well known. But when it comes to those videos, if you the video has been removed only because the title is misleading for now. When you watch the full video, you understand that the point of the video is that gendered violence is gendered violence against both men and women. My issue is that men sometimes get attacked in certain issues, and that's why I'm on the Gendered Violence Steering Committee, to bring the male representation in there and to make sure that we're defending both men and women. And I know that the majority of sexual assault and all these things are against women, and that's our main focus. But the point of the video was just that men and people who don't even identify with genders, people who identify as both genders or pansexual, whatever your orientation is, we need to make sure that we are defending everybody equally, and that was the point of the video. I have never once in any video said anything that has been an attack or target against any group of people. Everything has always just been, and in the video I say very clearly, in my opinion, in the 21st century, the best way that we can get things accomplished is through conversation. I don't believe that at this point in time in our society, especially in Canada, that aggression is the best way to solve things. I believe that sitting down at a table with a group of people, with leaders on campus and other things, that's the best way to get things accomplished. And that's what the Gender Violence Steering Committee is doing, and I'm so happy that I now have the opportunity to be on that. So I just wanted to say that I don't have any opinions on gender roles. I think that everyone has equal opportunities for everything. It's just that we have to, if we were saying that people really do have equal opportunities for everything, we have to look at every gender, and that's not just male and female. And that's not just, and we have to look at every sexual orientation, that's not just straight or gay, because there are pantheon of different ranges of sexual orientations that we need to take into consideration.
Thank you. I'll move on from that because you gave a good answer, or spoke to it. The second question for you is, so you're running for president of an organization. You were previously president of another organization and did not complete your term. Could you speak to the possible concern voters have surrounding your dismissal and why your next try at presidency will result in a complete term?
I wanted to run for student union president, and it was the thought of the organization, and then they convinced me it was, and now after running in the election, I got to agree with them. I wouldn't have been able to do both. But the truth of the matter is, the reason that I'm going to be able to finish my term as president is because there's nothing else that I need to do that will take up that time. So my plan, no matter what, win or lose, is eventually I'm going to be going to do my MSc in business management at Ivy. That's my next step. But if I win president, I'm going to finish my term as president and then take my months off in the summer, do my GMAT, do my applications, and then start my program. I'm not going to just jump out of presidency halfway through and say, I'm going to go do my master's. So the reason that I stepped down was because the person who was vice president at the time is one of my closest friends here at Laurier, and he was one of the first people I met. Tyler Martins was my roommate in first year. Dave knows him. He's a great guy, and he was my vice president. Imagine how fortunate I am that my one of my closest friends is my vice president I've known him for 4 years, and he's one of the people I trust the most in the school. And my other vice president is one of my old first years, who is also one of my closest friends. There is no one else that I would rather see running the organization that I love so much, other than the two people in this world that I trust the most with it. So I stepped down because it makes the most sense for me to have the most amount of time to go after my passion and help as many students as possible. And I have the utmost amount of faith in them. And Tyler is doing an amazing job, and Colin is doing an amazing job, and the rest of the chapter is doing an amazing job. They're all fantastic people, and we're all still getting along. They're all helping me out with all this, and not all. I mean, we believe in merit over loyalty, but they're being very supportive of my choice, and I couldn't be happier with the outcome so far.
You can certainly ask a question.
My question for you then, Frank, would be, obviously, when you accepted your previous presidency, this wasn't something on your horizon. You didn't foresee it being a problem, or presumably you wouldn't have accepted that position. So what do you see different about yourself now and your self-awareness and your ability to manage everything in your life that suggests to you that nothing's going to pop up in the next 12 months, that this time it's different? Because a year ago, when you accepted that, presumably you were of the same mindset. You wouldn't have accepted it if you weren't passionate and didn't want to do it. So what's changed from Frank a year ago to a Frank now?
Frank from 4 years ago has always wanted to be student union president. Frank from 4 years ago never wanted to be president of that off-campus organization. I was president because I needed to be, because people in the chat in the organization told me, you need to run for this because we want you as the leader. So I did, and I got it. I filled the leadership role because I was asked to do so, and sometimes leaders don't step up on their own. Sometimes leaders are told that they need to step up and do something, and those are the leaders that sometimes surprise themselves, and I think I surprised myself with all that and all the amazing work that we did, because we accomplished a lot in the summer months, which we usually never do, because we're a school organization. We usually only operate 8 months a year. We did so much in those 4 summer months that I definitely feel like I fulfilled my term. But what's going to be different? It's because this is it. This is the thing that I've wanted more than anything else. And if I start talking about it too much, I'm going to start crying. So I'm not going to do that because I don't want to tear up.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for allowing me to do that. The individual questions, I think, are important, because these are the questions that we're getting the most of about candidates. Let's move on to advocacy, because no one knows what the hell that means. So quickly, because I know you guys are very passionate about advocacy and all that, what do you want to advocate for? What's priority one when you take over the role? And if you could explain how you're going to work in relation to the University Affairs Department, that'd be helpful as well. And for this one, we will go Olivia, Dave, Frank.
Advocating on the Brantford campus, I think we're all going to touch on it, is special constable services. That is not something the union can do alone. We don't have it in the budget. We don't pay special constable services, but it's something that's necessary for the safety of our students. Advocating on the Waterloo campus, for me, it's very much advocating for things that do pop up. So we're going to go back to the gender violence right now. Students want to hear about that. Students want to feel supported in it. Students want to advocate for initiatives on behalf of that issue. So definitely at the on both of our campuses, that's going to be a big one for me. Luckily, I have experience working with University Affairs right now, but that's always growing. The thing is, with University Affairs, they're lobbying outside of the university as well. I believe the president's role is to lobby inside the university as much as possible.
Again, as Olivia said, we're probably all going to touch on SCS at the Brantford campus. It's in all of our platforms, and I think something we can all agree on. So that is definitely one of the priorities. My previous advocacy work on campus has been surrounding student wellness and mental health, so I'm going to take a step away from that. And I'm going to say that one of the priorities needs to be advocating for environments that encourage studying and productive behavior. So looking at making sure we have study space, looking at making sure that that's taken into consideration with future expansion of new buildings and that sort of stuff. And not only the study space, but the quality of it. The internet, is the Wi-Fi working? When everything's done online for classes and communications between profs and students are online, that's an important issue. And also making sure that there's power outlets throughout these new study spaces. Whatever we're doing, we need to make sure that it is conducive to the behavior we wish to see from the students. And right now they're asking for study space and internet.
Wi-Fi, always the hot button issue. It's what every student always asks about. And University Affairs did advocate on behalf of students. I think last year when I was coordinator, we went into a whole bunch of meetings during Local Advocacy Week, and they pushed up the progress of their Wi-Fi. They're planning on expanding it into residences, and they were planning on boosting it on campus. And we sped it up by like 8 months, I think, or something like that. It was supposed to be done next year, and they started it this year. So we are already having advocacy wins. I have experience with that. When we look at advocacy, I think right off the bat, we need to put more focus on Brantford. It's totally true. Right now, we have just the AVP, Laura Bissett, right there, doing most of the advocacy work. And I know Rick helps her out. But when we talk about the repark bylaw, when we talk about at 24-hour SCS, when we talk about safety poles, having one person there who is the AVP, they can be as amazing at their position as possible. But when the president steps in, when it doesn't matter who the president is, that role, that title, it carries a little more authority. We need to make sure that we are going there and doing it. We can't just say, yeah, let's keep letting our AVPs focus on it. When it comes to the Waterloo campus, I don't think a lot of students make the connection with this, but students' unions were originally all created to, they are unions. So just like workers' unions, we're a students' union. And we need to make sure we are defending students, especially in academic concerns. The BU 383 petition should not have gone as far as it should have gone. We should have stepped up as a students' union, whether it was through SBSS, whether it was through the clubs, Students and Clubs Association, whether it was through any other means, and we should have said, hey, listen to the school. Students are not learning properly right now. We should fix that. And it doesn't have to be aggressive. It can be collaborative. But we should have done something instead of just sitting there twiddling our thumbs, waiting for students to stand up and write a petition, which really upset the professors. We could have done this in so much of a more amicable way, but we let it go too far. So when it comes to student academic issues, we need to help out. Thank you for that notification.
I have study space in my platform at the end as a stance on, and there's a reason it's not under my advocacy piece, because it's more of a repurpose piece. We've talked about the turret space for ages. It did happen a few years ago where we tried to do it. We already did 2 years ago. This is in your platform. The concourse, that's already being done during exam study times. The GIE, when it's built, we can't dig up stone. Like, it's already being built. What we can do is repurpose those spaces. I believe we can do that. I just don't think it's something we can be like, we advocate for more study space. We don't have a capital budget to build more study space. We just need to work together to create those spaces for students, and we have been doing that. We have been getting better as a students' union. Students are going to complain about it, but it's more of a repurpose, not super advocacy.
Dave, I know you had something. Is this about study space? Study space? Okay, we're moving on. Can't do it. Something that is never advocated for, never mentioned, as far as I can remember anyway, is international students. So I'd like to know as president what you're going to do for international students and how you're going to make their experience better, for lack of a better word. And mental health can play a role here too. So international students are encouraged to come because we make a ton of money off them. And then they're often neglected. So I'd like to know what the Students' Union has planned to do, and if you're pleased with it or not, please indicate, but what specifically you will bring to the role. And Dave, we'll start with you, and then Frank, and then Olivia.
I think as the Students' Union, we represent all students, whether you're here for 1 year, 4, 5, or if you take even longer than that. But it's important to remember that those students are a member of the Students' Union during their time here. I think we need to develop our partnerships. We need to be working with those who are experts on the area, because as a non-international student, I'm not. And I learned that last year as a Don when I had an international student in my community and was able to see firsthand some of the challenges those students faced. And it's really something where we can't assume we know anything about it. But there are people who do, and we need to develop those partnerships and make sure that they are helping us decide what our strategic vision moving forward is to help bring them into the Students' Union, because I can't sit here right now and say that I know what the best solution is, because I have no experience from the other perspective.
So I might not be an international student, but I do have experience from that perspective, because I spent 4 months working my co-op term every single day at the international office, and I work directly with international students every single day. It was a great opportunity to learn about their problems, and it's true, you're right. That's one of the big concerns in the office. There's a lot of mental health issues when it comes to international students, because they're away from home. Some of them feel alone. Some of them don't have a good group of friends because they weren't able to make those personal connections yet. And whether or not the union can do something right now, whether or not we have a plan, I think one of the things that I can bring to the table is the fact that I have that experience. I've been in those meetings with Laurier International. I know them on a first name basis. I've worked with them for months. I can go in there and ask them for a favor, and I think they will definitely say yes. I mean, we can go in there and I think we can have a great conversation because I don't have to learn about all the baseline stuff. I know all about the LEAP program over at Brantford. We had a lot of conversations about that when I was working there, and a lot of the problems that we see international students typically start in the LEAP program. So it might be starting there. So I think one of the most important things we have to do in terms of international students is understanding their perspective, and I think I already have that down as much as a domestic student can.
I actually have a very personal experience with this because I was an exchange student. I went for a semester abroad to Georgia Southern University, and everyone's always like, it's the States, it's not that different. It is very different in the South. And I did have to acclimatize myself as an international student. And I've already seen how a students' union integrated me into their school. So I do have that personal experience. I also have another personal experience being a residence life Dawn. They used to put all the international students in Laurier Place, and that was the year I was a Dawn. And you could tell there's issues there with mental health, but there's also issues there with, it goes back to our whole idea of marketing out of the students' union to those students specifically. Residence Life had the same problem with those students. We didn't know how to market to them specifically. So I'd like to take my personal experience of being an international student, but also learning from conversations I've had. It's funny that this was asked because a few weeks ago we met with the Wellness Center, and they said that their top priority was international students because a lot of them didn't realize they needed to get hats and gloves because we're in Canada in the winter. So it's connecting all those groups together, because who would have thought Wellness Center when you thought of Laurier International? It's connecting all those groups together because as a students union, we should be connecting them, relationships, going back to that word, but we also should be advocating for them to all get together because if that's a need from those students, it needs to be happening.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the board. There is some riot moving this way if I don't ask a board question, so I'm going to get on that one. Let me just see how the question wants to be framed so we get the best answers. It's from about 10 different people, so it's a question from the masses. So we'll go Frank, Dave, Olivia for this. How do you foresee your relationship with the chair of the board and CGO? And how do you foresee the entire board functioning within your administration?
The only person who has stated so far that they are running for chair of the board is Colin Aitchison. I was his icebreaker. I brought him into the Sigma Chi fraternity. I worked with him. He was one of my assistants. He is the vice president of my organization when I was president. He is one of my best friends. He's my roommate. We're going to have a great time. It's going to be fun. The rest of the board, with the people who are already acclaimed and with the people who are running, I know almost all of them and already have a personal connection with them. So I think I'm not going to go in there and be hesitant because they are going to be my bosses. But at the same time, I think we have to have that social, personal connection, and I think I already have that. And I'm actually looking forward to working with them because it's going to be fun. I really like the people that are acclaimed and who are running, especially the Brantford people as I got to know them. They're great people.
I will point out that sometimes it's more difficult working with people you know. The people are your friends. And I'll leave it at that. But Olivia, or sorry, was it Dave? Yes, sorry. Dave, go ahead.
I'm the one person at this table right now who can't say that they have a pre-existing relationship with Colin. However, I don't foresee that being an issue. I feel very confident in my ability to get to know the chair of the board on a personal level and in a working relationship. And I think it's about finding that balance. The perspective I'd have from not having a pre-existing relationship with him is my ability to hold him accountable and likewise. And I think that would extend to the entire board. It's about developing a personal relationship to the point where you can be productive, but still maintaining that accountability, because at the end of the day, they are the boss of the president, and that's important that they know it, and it's even more important that the president knows it.
Well, given we've touched on it, yes, I was Colin's Dawn. Shout outs. But I just want to point out too, if someone else does decide to run for chair, that's not to throw Colin under the bus. That's okay as well. Now that we've talked about him 3 times, but yes, good. I foresee that relationship yes, you have to hold the president accountable, but you need to also be a welcoming face. And then I said this at Open Forum yesterday. You need to empower them as student leaders on campus as well. You need to hear what they're saying. They're the eyes and ears out there a lot. And at the end of the day too, and I'm just going to touch on this maybe because I'm a woman running in this position, I did speak with Melody yesterday, who's been acclaimed, and one of her big goals is going to be getting more women to run for board, making that position more accessible. That's a personal goal of mine for the union in general, between president and board of directors. So that's definitely something I'd love to see.
And that was a question I didn't get to, so thank you for touching on that. 30 seconds.
And this isn't like an attack. I just wanted to put this out there. Other than the board, we actually have a lot of female representation in our volunteers. So we have really low board representation, and we need more of that. But we do have a lot of female volunteers. So it's not like the female body is not getting involved in the students' union.
30 seconds, then we're on to closing statement.
Wasn't making a point about the student body, but now that you bring it up, it's true. We have so many student women volunteers. So why are these positions not accessible? Why are board of directors, where they're making a lot of decisions for students, or if we're going to look back on a few years, the president position as well, why is that position not accessible for women? The Cord posted an article today, and they said it might be because it's a hostile environment during elections. Interesting point, I thought. But I think it's cool that we have more volunteers as women, like you pointed out, but we need to focus on these positions then, in that case.
All right. Closing statements. We're there. It's almost 10 o'clock. And I have a ton of questions. We could be here all night. But closing statements. So we will go Olivia, Dave, Frank, 2 minutes apiece, or less if you so desire. But go right ahead.
As you can see, I think through all of this, I'm very passionate about this role. And I've put down a very tangible and realistic platform because I think you should vote on person and on platform. You need to be able to trust a person to enact their ideas, but they also have to put in the research to have those ideas in the first place and already connected with people. And I'm very proud to say I've done that. As we just touched on questions, if you have any more questions, please visit my website. You can email me there. You can Facebook me. I'm very easily accessible because I'd love to hear from students. I'm all about the whole better together. And I really do mean that with regards to even during elections, because I think this is the one time when these issues do come up. We talked at the beginning about foot patrol. That's the one time we're talking about this as an entire student population, rather than just specifically a few people. So please message me any questions you have. And please check out the platforms. Come out to Open Forum. I'm excited the debate went well, and I'm excited to continue it at Open Forum.
Thank you. It's an annual discussion. An annual tradition, the foot patrol debate. It's good.
Hopefully not anymore.
Hopefully not. I'm going to be watching. I'm going to get real mad.
I think throughout the campaign process, I've shown my passion not only for the role of president and for the Students' Union, but for the student experience for every Laurier student. And I think that's something my unique set of experiences at Laurier have provided me with, and it's something I am incredibly excited about having the potential opportunity to bring to this position. Like Olivia said, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me on Facebook or my website, or just come find me somewhere around campus because I'll probably be pretty visible for the next few days. It's been great to talk about these issues. At the end of the day, we're all here bringing up topics we're passionate about and topics we've talked to other Laurier students who are also passionate about. On a quick comment, some of you might have seen a picture of me as a baby in the Cord today. I don't know if it's because I'm clean shaven and can't grow a beard very well. I'd like you all to know, went to the beer store the other day and did not get asked for my ID. So we can put that to rest. I am just fine. Thank you.
It's funny we're talking about those Cord things because someone had to point out to me that apparently I was an old man because I thought that I was supposed to be Elton John because I thought I was wearing a boa and like the Elton John glasses. Someone pointed out, oh no, you look more like Santa Claus, and I'm like, oh. Okay, old man of the union, suspenders, I get it. But I would just like to say that this Open Forum was much more fun and smiley than I think last year's was. Not to say that last year's was bad. It just got very aggressive. And I just find it funny that the most aggressive that at least I got was when Chandler asked a question. So, but one thing that I do want to give props to Chandler for, I know this is a weird train of thought, but usually when we have presidential elections, people seem to be walking on eggshells. But one thing I learned from Chandler last year is that when you bring up the hard issues and you bring it to students' minds, they speak out, and they really, really grab hold of that. And so that's one of the things. And people call me opinionated, but opinionated it's not just my opinions. When I say that I don't like STAR, this is from all the people who I know on Foot Patrol, ERT, Bacchus, EcoHawks, Icebreakers, Shinorama, Go Team, University Affairs, people who never get on those because they fail STAR. When I talk about safety, it's not my platform because I noticed it. It's because I went to the Brantford campus and talked to students about it. When I have the parking thing in there, it's because I went to the Brantford campus and people said, yeah, parking's a problem. So when I'm speaking out about these things, it's not me being opinionated. It's me taking the opinions of the people around me and being their voice. So thank you once again, as I said, to Chandler for last year being that candidate and the first time and as long as I've been here to really just step out and speak out of things and be forceful in it. Because I think it taught me a really important thing is that when you're a leader, especially if you're going to be student union president, you need to go in there and you need to know when to put your foot down and you need to know when to be a little bit forceful. Because if we just keep sitting here and smiling and saying everything's all right, nothing's going to get done. So I thank you to him and thank you to you guys. This was really fun. And if anyone wants to go to trivia afterwards, I'll see you guys there.
All right. Well, thank you to the three of you for being here and putting up with my questions and the questions of the audience. Thank you to everyone who sent questions in. Thank you to the Cord, the most fabulous university newspaper in the country and the world. Because you three are so good at answering questions, you can all pick up your microphone and say, I love this school. We can all say it together as a reward. I'm just kidding.
It was okay.
Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you to the candidates. Best of luck to each of you. Look forward to voting. Voting is 4th and 5th? 4th and 5th. Matt, your beer looks great as always. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Good night.